when I speak like this every time, people think that I'm discouraging people. Yes, I'm discouraging you from copying somebody. I want you to be yourself so that you're sellable. And then you make money. It's not even my money, it's your money.
Conversation.
The question is, how do you think the use of traditional music elements in contemporary music helps to promote Zimbabwean culture and identity?
I was fortunate enough to travel more than 30 countries around the world with music. And I've always been a student of music, a student of musicology. So I'm always observing as I travel around the world. And from my observations, if we, like you were saying, taking some elements of traditional music and putting it into what you're calling contemporary music, is it? It's one way of marketing ourselves, because the world music market is looking for something different. They're not looking for another Beyonce. Beyonce is there already. They're not looking for another Burna Boy. Burna Boy is there already. They're not looking for another Sean Paul. Sean Paul is there already. So our biggest mistake as Zimbabweans is always we are trying to reproduce other people's music, other people's image and so forth. If you look at most of our young artists at the moment, we've got a lot of artists who are trying to be Beyonce, a lot of artists who are trying to be Jay-Z, a lot of artists who are trying to be Burna Boy, Tiwa Savage, Amapiano artists. The problem with that is you are trying to sell snow to the Eskimos. They have it already. You see? So that's why you notice that amongst the new generation, we only have one international artist, one international group, only one, Mukomba. Why? Because they play music that's music from where they come from. They sound like themselves. You see? So the international market is not interested in you. For example, you try to go to America and sounding like Coldplay or any other rock band. They have it already, and they do it far much better than you. There's no way you can compete with anybody on their own type of music. So, coming back to your question, I would like us to focus on the phrase contemporary music. Because in Zimbabwe, every time what we call contemporary, what we call modern, is always foreign. If you've never noticed that. Every time we say this is the new stuff that the youngsters are listening to, it's always foreign. It's never local. And we should ask ourselves, why is it like that? Because if we take a look at South Africa, right now the in thing among South Africans is Amapiano. Whose music is it? It's theirs. Right now in Nigeria, the in thing in Nigeria is Afrobeats. Whose music is it? It's theirs. In Jamaica, they've got dancehall. Whose music is it? In America, they've got hip hop, trap, and everything. Whose music is it? Now let's look at Zimbabwe. You see, that's our biggest problem. We're the biggest culture vultures when it comes to music. Every time we say this is contemporary, this is new, it's always something that has been taken from outside. That's why it's very difficult for you to go overseas and sell it. All those hip-hop artists or the dancehall artists that go outside Zimbabwe, they're going to perform for Zimbabweans. They're not going on international markets. Now let's go back, let's rewind from year 2000 going backwards. How many international artists do we have? A lot of them. Thomas Mafumolva, Mtukudzichoniso Maraire, Stella Chiweshe, Andy Brown, Bundu Boys, a whole list of international artists. Why were they international? Because the world was ready to listen to something new. Up to now, the world is ready to listen to something new. They don't want imitations. So, my question or my challenge to the youth every time is, why don't we create something new? I'm not saying play Sungura. I'm not saying play Mbira as it is. But why don't you create something new that is ours? Something modern with the 808 bass, with all those auto tunes and all those new sounds, but it is Zimbabwean. That's where we lack. Because if you look at Jamaica, I can give you an example of Jamaica. They started with mento. There's a type of music that was called mento. If you listen to mento, it's sort of like a raw type of reggae. It was not complete. It was not finished. It was not refined. From mento, they moved to ska. From ska, they moved to what they called rocksteady. From rocksteady, they moved to roots reggae. From roots reggae, they moved to dancehall. Of course, currently they've got roots reggae and dancehall moving concurrently. So what's happening there is they are taking their old type of music and then modernizing it. But in Zimbabwe, we don't want to take our old type of music and modernize and create something new. We always want to copy from next door. So I think that is our biggest downfall. That's why the modern generation does not have international artists. We're always busy copying other people. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, so we've got South Africa. They had Brenda Fass's The Quiet Boy, and then you grew from The Quiet Boy, you went to Amapiano.
And you can tell it's the same skeleton.
Yes.
It's the same skeleton, but they're putting new flesh on the same skeleton. Because Amapiano right now is the same Digong. It's the same, I don't know how they pronounce it. But it's the same skeleton given new flesh. Even if you look at reggae, the example that I gave you is the same skeleton, but that was given new flesh. But in Zimbabwe, we're always peeping at next door with what are the South Africans doing? What are the Jamaicans doing? And we've got people who are trying to sound Jamaican. I speak Patco. I was in Jamaica in February. Ladies and gentlemen, there's not even a single person in Zimbabwe who speaks Patco. If you listen to Jamaicans speak, it's like you're listening to tongues or you're listening to a strange language. When they simplify it, that's when we can understand it. But not, okay, but not always one a big man, yeah man, big things are one. That simple part was simplified for the ordinary people. But when they speak raw part, you won't even listen, you won't even understand a single word. So as Zimbabweans, I don't know where we lack. We are always trying to be somebody. That's our biggest downfall. That's our biggest downfall. I was in America the other time. There was a young man who was sweeping the floor. And he said, I've got my music. Can you please listen to what I do? And he's saying, he had a wonderful voice. He's in America, but he's failing to get a record deal. And then someone here in Mavuku thinks they can record a demo in Mavuku and take it to America and get a breakthrough. Some of the dreams that we are selling each other are nightmares, ladies and gentlemen. That's a nightmare. That's not a dream. So when I speak like this every time, people think that I'm discouraging people. Yes, I'm discouraging you from copying somebody. I want you to be yourself so that you're sellable. And then you make money. It's not even my money, it's your money. Thank you.
What I want to ask you is, do you mentor, do you give mentorship of people to understand what is music and where music comes from? What drives you to do music?
Okay, it's become very difficult to advise our young folk. Why? Because they are popular on radio, they are popular on social media, they are popular in the media, and that popularity, untamed, gives them a sense of success. And that sense of success tends to make them look down on musicians like me.
Go to you guys. Do you have any questions?
So I just have a question. You mentioned that we have our own traditional music. Could you tell us as Zimbabweans, because if we see South Africa, it's Amapiano, it's their hip hop type of, but what is our own Zimbabwean traditional music and what are our characteristics?
You know Thomas Mapfumo, you know Oliver Mtukuzi, you know Japanese. Do you know Japanese's last album, Nana Goto? That's Zimbabwean, that's a Zimbabwean sound. That's our sound.
He's taken it from...
if you listen to Goto, that's Mande from Machine. And then in Blawayo, we've got what they call Mbube. There's Amabiza. There are so many untapped local genres that are waiting to be tapped. But we're busy trying to copy what others are doing with their own music when we have a lot of our own stuff locally. So we've got a lot of music around here. Even Sungura, do you know that Sungura is not even ours? Sungura is from Kenya. It's called, original name is Benga Music. And then there was a producer called Fares Kanindo. Fares Oluchi Kanindo. He was the most popular producer who used to produce that music. So when it came to Zimbabwe around the 70s, the name of the record label was written on the record. Kanindo had a number of record labels. One of the record labels was called Sungura. Sungura means tsuro or hey in Swahili. So Sungura was the name of the record label. The name of the producer was Kanindo. So people thought it's either called Kanindo or it's either called Sungura. But the name of the music is called Benga Music. But thank God we put our own Zimbabwean rhythms into the music. So right now, if you listen to Benga music and you listen to Sungura music, they are different. The same thing happened to hip-hop. Do you know that hip-hop is not American originally? Research a name called DJ Kool Herc. He's a Jamaican DJ who moved to America and is the one who started hip-hop.
A young Jamaican-born New Yorker known as DJ Kool Herc.
What he used to do is he would take a record, look for a drum break, and then loop that drum break.
With a pair of turntables, he improvised a technique that isolated and repeated musical breaks.
Like for example, there's a kind of gudu-du-pa. Then you loop it, gudu-du-pa, gudu-du-pa, gudu-du-pa. Then someone starts rapping on top. That's how hip-hop started on the 11th of August, 1973.
In August 1973.
So the Americans loved the idea. They did not copy Jamaicans. They Americanized it. They Americanized it until it needed a new name, and they called it hip-hop. The same thing happened to reggaeton. Reggaeton, what they did is they took Shabba Ranks' song called Dembao.
Shabba Ranks Dembo.
Dembao, Dembao.
Dembo, Dembo, Dembo.
And then they started singing in Spanish, started adding some Spanish elements. They Spanishized it enough until it needed a new name, and they called it reggaeton. The same thing with Lucky Dube. Lucky Dube copied Jamaican reggae, and if you listen to the way Lucky Dube sings,
What type of a rich man are you?
he sings exactly like Peter Tosh from Jamaica.
I must be fighting till Africa and Africans are free.
But they added South African keyboards. That you never find that keyboard in Jamaica. That's South African. Although they did not give it a new name, but if you listen to it, it's totally different from Jamaican reggae. That is why Lucky Dube was able to penetrate internationally. But our problem as Zimbabweans is, if somebody is inspired by Cardi B, they want to sound exactly like Cardi B. If somebody is inspired by 50 Cent, they want to sound 100% like 50 Cent. You cannot impress them that way. And if you listen to Amapiano, it's a South African version of house music. But it was so South Africanized that it ended up needing a new name. Right now, they can sell it back to America where house music came from. Because it's now sounding totally different. So I think it's because all these nations are so proud of themselves. When I was in Jamaica in February, I asked them, but, how come your country is so small, only 3 million people, and your music has influenced the world? What's your secret? And you know what he said? He said, we are proud of who we are. That's one thing lacking among Zimbabweans. Zimbabweans, we are so ashamed of who we are. We are ashamed of our music, we are ashamed of our language, we are ashamed of everything about Zimbabweans. Even our accent, we are ashamed. Jamaicans are not ashamed of their accent. You'll be speaking Yemen big things and you'll be breaking the English and no one laughs at them. Well, I'm very insecure to speak English among Zimbabweans than speaking English among the British. Because in Zimbabwe, it's a sign of intelligence. So one of our biggest problems as Zimbabweans that's hindering us everywhere is we are so ashamed of who we are. And it's a subconscious problem. And the problem with subconscious problems is you don't even know that you have it. But the manifestations can be seen by those who understand psychology. You can see the way you don't want your kids to speak Shona. You can see by the way you don't want to listen to anything that sounds very Zimbabwean. We can see by the way you want to promote Amapiano and the way you want to promote Afrobeats and the way you want to promote dancehall and the way you want to speak Patwa, fake Patwa. That's a sign of self-hate. And yeah, I can go on and on and on. I hope I've answered you.
Yeah, just to add on, you know, how many of you listen to Mbira music?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
Impressive, and understand our traditional dances because they are so diverse. In fact, we are one of the few countries and with tribes that have got a diverse number of traditional dances. You know, when our traditional dancers go out there, they always leave a huge mark. But we never adopt that kind. We never adopt their dances in our music or in our contemporary dances.
Just want to take 2 more questions.
My question then is, how then do we bridge the gap between local audiences and international audiences? Because for us to go international, locals have to appreciate us first. But then the locals, they're not appreciating us first, which is why musicians are copying international styles and making it seem as if that's what they're good at and that's what they know and that's their culture. How then do you tell someone to stop producing that same music that puts bread on their table because they believe that half a loaf is better than none?
That's a good question. I always say that currently the formula for international success is to sound Zimbabwean. It has always been like that. But currently the formula for you to get airplay on radio and everything these days, you need to sound foreign. Because our radio stations, we've got a number of radio stations that even boast with our sound. We need a sound that sounds like this. But what they really mean is they want a Zimbabwean that sounds Nigerian, South African, Jamaican, or American. They don't want Zimbabweans who sound Zimbabweans. And that's said, and the way to solve that problem is, if you go around the world, there are what are known as airplay quota laws. If you go to France, Germany, everywhere in the world, they've got what are known as quota laws, where they limit the number of foreign music that's played on the radio stations. And in Zimbabwe, it was implemented around year 2000. And people thought it was oppression. It's not oppression, that's how it is worldwide. And the few countries that don't have that law is just America, India, and a few other countries. And those countries, if you take a look there, those countries are very patriotic. You don't tell an American to play American music. That's what they play. If you go to America, you never hear anything from Zimbabwe, South Africa, on national radio. Never. They only play their own stuff. So media is very influential. In psychology, there is what they call mere exposure effect. And what it means is, if you listen to something for a long time, you begin to love it, no matter how much you hate it. A good example is dancehall. The first days dancehall was played in the combis. People were complaining, please stop that music, it's noisy. But after some time, everybody started liking it. Even lies, if somebody tells you a lie for a long time, you end up thinking it's true.
Yeah.
You see, so those in the media are not aware of the power that they have. They've got a lot of power, but they use it in a way which doesn't promote our country. So to answer your question, the best way to bridge that gap is to start with the media, to have laws enacted by the government, just like what happens around the world, just like what happened around the year 2000, so that our media starts promoting our music. Even just when you see a DJ dancing to foreign music, like Amapiano on radio, you are busy promoting foreign music. Or to tell us on radio, today is Jay-Z's birthday. Do you know Victor Kunonga's birthday? No, you are not saying it on radio. That's promotion. So I think our media needs to be educated on patriotism and how to promote our own music. Otherwise, our youth are going to spend all their time as Zimbabweans and coming back. No one is going to go international. I think you've noticed from the year 2000 up to now, we only have one international artist from the AMA 2000. Just one, Mokomba. Because everybody's trying to sound Jamaican, South African, Nigerian, and American. And You cannot give the world another Tiwa Savage. They have there already.
We have an identity crisis. Like you were saying, you are putting bread on the table with what you are doing now. But how much is it? It could be much more when you start understanding that you need to be influenced by your homegrown sound. So the reason why the local audience may seem unappreciative is because they actually don't know where you stand. They're looking at you and saying, we like her, she's got potential, but it's not the potential that she's somewhere, you know? So the identity crisis is what we are faced with in Zim. But unfortunately, with what you are doing, which seems to be appreciated here, like he said, they do not understand what it is up there. Because again, you've got an identity crisis. They don't know whether you are with us or you are from where you come from.
Oh yes, I was saying I enjoyed the point that you talked about how we might end up learning how to incorporate our own sounds from foreign people, because there's a foreign band that I like, which is an alternative music band. It's American and they're called Paramore. And when you look at their influences, they have a very big Thomas Mafumo influence. They even mention him in their credits, right? So it's almost as if like other people are more proud to incorporate us than we are. And so from that question, I'm saying, is it that we just need to have more PR for our music? Can't we just like overexpose our own people to that music until they see them as like viable genres to incorporate, even if they have Western influences, so that we can merge it together? What I'm saying is, can't we just push our music more instead of like thinking about it in a way that like we're like, we are ashamed to be ourselves. We just need probably like 2 or 3 artists that are extremely proud to be Zimbabwean to kind of like overload it so people can adopt it. So that was my big question of like, how can we improve our PR for our own music so that other people can adopt it?
Remember when I mentioned about me exposure effect, that psychology phrase, I said the more you are given something, the more you like it. So the best way to solve that issue, I think I answered it already when I said we need government intervention so that we have airplay, quota laws, so that our radios and our media promotes our own music.
You know, of course, when you talk of government and legislation and everything they want to do, it takes ages, isn't it? But we are the biggest influencers, and in the way we are going to adopt what we do at the end of the day. And this is not just on the music side, even in painting. When you draw or whatever you do, you can draw and copy Da Vinci and hope you know you are going to make it out there. So what you find is because we offer something unique from a traditional perspective. This is why you find an American band has come to adopt that unique sound, and they want to understand what it is and also spread the influence in the States. But the moment young people like you want to handle the mbira, religion takes over. Hey, you are doing Chivanu, you are doing this. So there's a whole lot of factors that have killed our confidence. So we are the biggest change that we should be.
I wanted to ask specifically, you know, because you've mentioned a lot of problems, and I think maybe because I'm last, I can maybe ask for a little bit of hope. You know, if you guys, because there are some people who are trying to do some stuff, you know, on like Bantu Spaceship, who are doing, it's Sangura, but it's EDM, you know, or we talk Chikwata 263, who are doing Imbira Punk, you know, or there's Dividing the Element and Acid Tears, who are doing heavy metal, but in Shona. You know, so there are some people that are trying to do, and I just wanted to ask if you guys had any advice for other young artists to, like, some hope, some words of encouragement and hope on how to incorporate our shared history in music.
You remember I mentioned how hip hop was started. I said It's a Jamaican concept which was Americanized. And I mentioned, what's the other genre? You give me the name. Reggaeton, yeah. So it's possible to take a foreign genre, like you are talking of EDM and adding some bira or or Zimbabweanizing it. It's very possible. But I think what you need to do in such cases is when you add those Zimbabwean elements, it must not be sort of like an afterthought. When you add the bira, it mustn't be something that you struggle to yield. There seems to be some bira or some Zimbabwean elements. It has to be up there. That's what everybody else does when they sort of like steal something and localize it. So I think that's a good idea. I know Chikwata 263, that's a very good concept. So I think those people, they need support. Like, remember when I talked about airplay, quota laws, the problem is those artists who bring something new, they are never given airplay. So as long as they don't get airplay, they don't go anywhere. So that's why I'm emphasizing the fact that we need government intervention. I'm sure every one of us has got one DRC person that we know of, or some friends from DRC. Have you ever noticed that everybody from DRC loves rumba? If it's gospel, it's rumba. If it's secular, it's rumba. Everything is rumba. It did not happen by coincidence. It happened because of a president called Mobutu Sese Seko. It was a law that was enacted in the country that you have to play local music everywhere. The radio stations were instructed to play rumba, to play their own sound. So at times, those ideas are difficult to implement if you don't have such government intervention. Because right now, our DJs are busy. They'll be busy. They can go for an hour without playing a single local song. Yeah. And they think it's cool. They think that's what the people want. But no, it's what you are giving the people. Because what happens with mere exposure effect is people love what you give them. So if you say we are giving them amapiano because it's what they are asking for, we are now putting the cart in front of the horses. Because you are the ones who gave them first, and then they loved it, and then they are now requesting it. So in short, we really need government intervention so that there are some laws that are passed so that local music or music that reflects who we are is given airplay.
In terms of music, how do you differentiate African culture and African religion in terms of music?
Oh, that's a good question. How do you differentiate African culture from African religion? Every religion has got a philosophical side. Every religion has got a moral side. Every religion has got a spiritual side. There's one element, also a stupid side to every religion. I know that might be controversial, but every religion has got all those four sides. The same thing with culture. Like in Africa, our culture was intertwined with our religion. So, for example, let's take, for example, the Mbira. There are places like the Bira. It was a religious ceremony where the Mbira was played. But at the same time, there are places where the Mbira was played just for fun. So that's a separation already. And then if we go to Europe, there's a ritual which was called epiclesis. You can look it up. That is when they were using the organ, which is the ancestor of the keyboard, the sitara, which is the ancestor of the guitar. They were using those instruments to summon their spirits before Christianity was introduced. So look at the instruments that were used: the organ, the sitara, which is the ancestor of the guitar, and the harp that King David used to play in the Bible. All those instruments were used to summon spirits in Europe. So this shows you that there is no instrument which is clean. All instruments were used in both spiritual context and in social context. So it's up to you, where do you want to put the Mbira? Do you want to put it on the spiritual side? Do you want to put it on the social side? Even the guitars, you want to use it for epiclesis and summon European gods, or you want to use it to worship Jesus just like the Hillsongs do, or you want to use it for secular music? So the point I'm trying to make is, for a long time, we were taught that everything African was demonic. And we were taught, leave the Mbira, stop playing the Ngoma. Do you know that the early days when missionaries came, there were some missionaries who were moving around with shambooks? Yeah. They were moving around with shamboks, and if you were found playing the mbira, you were beaten up. They would say, the missionary is coming, hide the mbira, they will hide the mbira. So it was put into us to hate those instruments. We were told there's a mashavi, but the point I'm trying to make is there is no instrument that fell from heaven. All the instruments were created here. And it was up to us to take it to the spiritual side or take it to the social side. So answering your question, it's simple. As long as you don't put worship in it, it's not religious. If you can take the mbira and sing love songs like Master Chiwero, there's no spirituality in that. I hope I answered you.
It's pretty much summed it up very well. You know, in my early years, I was also exposed to the name that he's just said. He comes from my rural area, Master Chiwero. He used to sing during the liberation struggle, and he took the mbira and made it lighter,
very contemporary.
and very contemporary, and brought in a bit of that jitty feel to it, and became very popular.
You never sang about Mzimo or anything.
Yeah,
it was just
so,
social.
So it's obviously like you were saying, people were whipped into everything that we've probably adopted now. Most of what we've probably adopted now. The reason you were whipped is they didn't understand the instrument itself.
Monoversation.